Welcome to Waumini Soul Food this wonderful Friday. And I just want to jump into a morning reflection as we begin off this wonderful day. Today, actually, I'm going to share many times I like talking about things that we ought to do. And today I'm going to talk about things that we should not do. Things that we should not do in our marriages. Things we should not do in our marriages. And this is very important because at times we can be lost in focusing on what we are doing, yet what we are doing is what we should not be doing, and at times we can end up spoiling something because of that. I was giving a reflection a few days ago somewhere else, and I was talking about things that parents should never tell their children. And it was interesting because at times we also, in what we should not be saying, is what we are actually saying. And many a times it is very, very unconscious, and it's also because of our own maybe upbringing or our own perspectives. But I'm just going to mention very quickly things that should not be done, because these things in general are the silent things that at times hurt us or destroy our homes. The first one is this: don't delay in saying sorry. Don't delay in saying sorry. One of the funniest things is that whenever you're in a relationship with someone, one of the key things that has to die, is pride. Pride has to die. That's one of the first things. When I was getting married, someone told me once that, Victor, when you go to that altar, be willing to die. Be willing to die to yourself, to your pride, to your ego, because the only way that your marriage will work is if you're willing to die to yourself. And I found that to be very profound, because I imagined what it means for me to be or to carry myself as I want to. Now, if you look at those of you who are listening to me right now, and maybe your marriage is at a place where it is irreparable, or you have a relationship that ended to the point whereby it was completely irreparable, if you look back, you'll realize that there was a moment when the rain began to hit. And more often than not, in most relationships, the rain begins to hit at the time when someone actually delayed in apologizing. And the delayed apology developed some form of resentment. This form of resentment built to anger, built to a frustration, created something else. So you find that many times whenever I see couples coming to my office and they come for a session, you always find that the issue that brought them there is not necessarily the issue that began their problems. That's one of the most fascinating things that I see in my office every other day. When people come to my office and they're looking to find a way to rebuild their relationships, I've always found that there's the issue that brings them, okay? Then there is the issue that they think is the issue. Then lastly, there is the issue that was hidden. Now, many a times the issue that was hidden is actually it's normally the real one, because you find that someone can come and say, we are here today, 2021. Let's say I see someone this week. Today we have come because of bad communication. But if we look back and track back, we'll find that the marriage began to have a problem in 2012. And 2012 is when issues began, because 2012 is when maybe one person made a mistake and chose not to apologize for it. And the other person took it badly, and it went on growing and growing and growing. If there is a mistake that has been made in a relationship, forgiveness should come first. You must be willing to ask for forgiveness. Before I even move to the person choosing to forgive you, you must be willing to acknowledge that I have made a mistake and I think I do need to be forgiven. If I ask for an apology now, maybe it would heal many things. Again, I've had couples in my office where they only wanted to be told sorry. They have burnt the house, they have left, they have done all these things, they're in court, and the only thing they wanted was an apology. That's the interesting thing. Number two, very common issue here is never assume the worst. Never assume the worst. In an average healthy family, in an average healthy human relationship, we must be willing to generally desire the good, that someone else is good. To desire that my partner is actually a good person. They're not fundamentally wicked to the core. That my spouse loves me, or my spouse is not deliberately wicked. Let me say that. This always helps us at times, dear listener, to be able to find a ground for consensus. And I'll say this even at the times that I've worked with couples who are heading towards maybe divorce. And I always say that because at times when people are going through maybe a bad separation, it's ugly. they're in court and they're fighting. And at times, such people normally sent to my office. And at times they come to my office, and maybe the lawyers have said, okay, these guys need help, let's send them. And they come. It is the things that they could not iron out in court, I ironed out because I take them to the place where they realize that, okay, fine, we are breaking up, but I should still believe that there's a good person inside you somewhere. And that's a good person I want to talk to. Now, in a marriage setup, it's important for you to believe that your partner is still a good person. They might be having an affair, but it's good to assume, first of all, that let me separate the action from the person. Because if I separate the action from the person, then it's easy to reconcile. It is easy to understand their perspective. It is easy to bring them to the table for negotiation. Because more often than not, and the ladies listen to me this morning, you'll bear me, you'll just agree with me on this, that why do we struggle bringing men into rooms to be able to have discussions about their marriages? Why do men not come as often? Because more often than not, society is wired that if a marriage has a problem, it's the man who has made the problem. Yes, many a times it might be true, but that assumption by itself hinders the possibility of reconciliation. That assumption by itself hinders the possibility of reconnection. Because I already think you think the worst of me. Yes, maybe I had an affair, but you're already thinking that I'm the worst person on earth. You have connected the action to the person. In fact, when I'll be talking about parenting in one of these few weeks, it's the same mistake parents make. When you combine your child and the action, and your child believes that they're evil to the core, just because they did not do their homework, or just because they took an extra cookie. Yet, my dear friends, in reality is that never assume the worst of the person, even the person who you have separated with. I say this because I've dealt with couples who are even co-parenting. And even in co-parenting, unless there is a goodwill, but I know, yes, me and you didn't agree on various things, but let me assume that you're not a wicked person. There, maybe I can bring you to the table. Maybe we can talk. Number 3, dear listener. Things you'll never do. This one you've heard it before. You know? Do not focus on changing your spouse. Do not focus on changing your spouse. We've heard this before, but I'll say it again. Because many times we always think that if our spouses would change and grow and become more Christians and come to church and begin to pray, this would be the best thing to happen to us. But the reality is this, is that the more you focus on that, the farther you get from it. Our main focus of change and growth in a relationship is ourself. You're the main focus of change and growth in the relationship. You. The moment you put it to be your main focus is your partner to grow. But if my partner came to church, if my partner began to pray, if my partner, I have seen marriages where the partners actually want the person who they never thought would changes, and ends up being better than the one who was trying to initiate the change. It is important to note that one of the biggest mistakes you can ever do is to forget where the focus of change is. And again, I'll throw it into parenting as well. But as a parent, when my children are going off the rails, I must ask myself a simple question. While I want to rush them from therapist to therapist, I must ask myself another question. Is it possible that as a human being, if I changed, maybe my kids would change? Is it possible that as a parent, if maybe I changed, if as a dad or as a mom, if maybe I changed, maybe my children actually might change? And that's normally the catch. Because many a times it's normally a difficult choice to make. Because many a times, dear listener, we don't want to change. Many a times we want to leave the burden of change to the other person. And that is wrong in any relationship, dear listener. That is wrong in any relationship. Number 4, my personal favorite. Don't take everything personally. Don't take everything personally. I was talking to a group of people a few days ago, and I said that 98% of the things that a human being encounters in life are not personal. Only 2% of things that we carry are personal. In a relationship, don't be too personal, or don't take things too personally. We cannot, because relationships are not also for weak people. Let me be real a bit here. Relationships are not for weak people. Marriage is not for weak people. Parenting is not for weak people. You cannot be in a relationship and you have extraordinary level of weakness that everything is personal. I had a chat with a mom yesterday in my office, and you're talking about the raising of children, and you're saying that, about paying, because she's a single mom raising her children by herself, and the father of the children doesn't want to pay school fees and all these things. And I asked her a question. I asked her, what happens the day that this father wakes up and wants to take your child to Harvard when the child is 18 or 19, and they look for a school and they go together and they get a school and she pays? So, Victor, I'd be very hurt, because I've invested my life to take care of this child, and the father just came in at the last minute to take the child away. So that's what the problem is. You're taking the wrong thing personally. If the father has come to pay school fees for the child, it's not about you, it's about the child. It's not your report from the child is abandoning you, it's the child fighting for his or her own future. More often than not, take things personally, and that even happens when you're setting up our marriages. This way also, maybe at times, in-laws, people begin fights with in-laws. Why do people begin fights with in-laws? Is because maybe the mother-in-law, the father-in-law is taking the marriage of their children too personally, as though it is their own marriage. They're taking what's happening in the life of their child too personally, as though it is their own, And that's the issue in most of our human relationships, that don't take everything too personally. At times, someone might be reacting not because of how you are, but because of how they are. Your boss can shout at you at work, not because you are a bad person, but because they have had a bad day. Not everything in life is personal. Don't be too personal. And if you're not too personal, you can listen to the undertones of what your partner is saying. You can listen to what your child is saying. Because if you're too personal, you'll always turn things around. If you're being corrected as a wife or as a husband, you start saying, you don't appreciate that I normally pay rent, I pay for power, I pay school fees. But you're just being told, be a little bit kind. It has nothing to do with what you are doing or other things that you are failing to do or doing right. It's just a correction. At times we fail to change because we take everything too personally. If you take everything too personally, you have to learn to identify when you are being too sensitive to issues and when you can just laugh some things off. Because one thing that I've come to learn, in the years that I've been a relationship coach, is that it's easier to smile than to be offended. It is always easier to smile than to be offended. Not taking everything to heart and learning, to let some things go and learning to water down some things. I've realized that are one of the best things you can do to keep a relationship healthy. That is a very important point. I realized that, and I realized that some things, just laugh them off. There are comments that your spouse can make, just laugh them off. Because at times also, taking things too personally kills the romance, kills the friendship. And number 5, my dear friends, never lose hope. Do not lose hope. Always find where you can find hope. If your marriage is ending, find hope that your partner will still continue to be a good dad or a good mom. If your marriage is on the rocks, always find hope that you can find a solution. We can find a solution. And I've always sent couples who have come to me and said, Victor, I'm trying to bring my partner that we can have a solution. I always tell them, speak hope. Speak hope to them. Don't speak the crisis. Speak hope. Don't lose hope in your relationship. Always speak hope. It's easier to negotiate with someone about the marriage if there is hope. When you abandon hope, you abandon the possibility of rebuilding. Always speak hope. Tell your partner, we can find a solution. I believe if we put our heads together, we can find a solution to fix this. We can find a solution to raise our children better. We can find a solution for money. But whenever we come without hope, hopelessness is seen in very ways. Hopelessness is seen in the tone you use to address an issue. When you come talk about money and you begin by saying, we are in a very bad financial situation, you are not speaking hope, you are attacking, and the other person goes into defense. If you are speaking, our marriage, we never spend time together, you're not speaking hope. But if you come saying, we are very busy, there's so much work we are doing, and we're trying to build our lives and our career, I think that if you put our heads together, we can be able to even spend more time together or build our marriage to become better. That's a different communication. I'm speaking hope. We must always learn to speak hope in our relationships. Do not lose hope. One of the things that we do and we should never do is to lose hope. When you begin to say, my partner will never change. This is how my husband will be until Christ comes back. This is how my wife will be until God comes back. Women are always like this. Men are always like this. Once we generalize, my dear friends, we begin to walk a slippery slope because we're not able to be, we're not going to be able to achieve that which we want to achieve, dear listener. That is our morning reflection. It will be available on my Facebook page, Victor Salamba, within the course of this wonderful day.